Chris, you're muted.
Now I'm unmuted. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to the Fall 2024, the EdCollab Gathering. And welcome to our Zoom room where I was muted. So this is our 22nd gathering. It is Fall 2024. We have been here doing 2022 of these. If you have joined us for the first time or have been here many times, welcome. So first, a few announcements to help you get situated for today and know how this day runs, and then we'll head over to our amazing keynote. So the EdCollab Gathering is and always has been free. You can join from anywhere, tune in live all day long, and then today's gathering, just like all the others, will also be recorded and archived on our YouTube channel. So if you wish you could go to both workshops at the same time, well, you can't at the same time, but you can go to both. The best place to, let me go back here. The best place to follow along for today, first is to go to gathering.theeducatorcollaborative.com. You might be watching us right now on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. There's lots of places. If you go to that website, you can see the entire day's agenda, as well as links directly to our YouTube chats. We are the EdCollab. We host today's gathering twice a year, every September, every April. And so you can get to know us more at our website there. And if you post anywhere today, please do tag us at the EdCollab. We would love to repost you and connect with you as well too. We are a think tank of educators across K through 12 and college that think about literacy and our practices and methods together. We also provide professional development. Many of you have asked over the years, and we're finally doing it. If you would like clock hours for today, you can do it. 4 clock hours are available for joining the entire day. Live is the best way to join, but you can also watch in the future in case you miss something. That includes New York State CTLE hours and Texas CPEs. Learn more at the link right there, or when you're on our main website, you can also click on clock hours to learn more. Because today is free, because you can join this incredible conference in your pajamas at home, we ask for every one of our gatherings that if at any point today you feel inspired, you feel like your work is supported, if you feel like you have a community that is behind you, if you feel fire from what you hear today, Instead of paying for registration with us, or perhaps lunch between sessions if you were on site somewhere, or even for your morning coffee, take whatever you may have paid for an incredible conference day like this and pay the joy forward. Today we have two adopted charities. Lorena and Roberto have adopted for us top-notch scholars, and the Ed Collab has adopted for us Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. You can learn about both on that link, gathering.theedcollab.com/charity, or on the top of our website. Both from that page, you'll go to both of their direct pages. You can learn more and you'll donate directly to them. So please, if at any point you think, wow, I'm so glad that I attended today, please do pay that joy forward by supporting organizations that are doing really important on-the-ground work. You could be joining us from lots of different channels this morning. The very best place to chat along live is on YouTube. So if you aren't there right now, please head over to our YouTube channel. It's the Ed Collab, or you can go to our main gathering website and click on any of the yellow links, like you see right there, the one for Tawanda Anita's session coming up in a bit, and it will take you directly to the YouTube page. And we and the presenters encourage you, chat, not just to us, but with each other. Please use that YouTube chat as a place to ask questions for presenters, but also to connect and share ideas. You can be your back channel that you use as you move ahead. So before we move to introducing our keynote, I would just like to say a little bit about our framing for today and our theme, Hope is a Verb. So if you are like all the members of our think tank, and the times that we get together, we talk about education, but we also just talk about life and how it feels to be an educator right now, how it feels to be a human in the world. And right now it feels like there is this pull and tug around hope. We want the world we live in and the world that our students are inheriting to be a better place. But there is so much darkness all around us too. And so when we thought about how to frame today's conference, we were inspired by Samara Ahmed's This Book Won't Burn, which we read for an Ed Collab book club this last summer. In it, the main character, Noor Khan, she's a high school senior. And as you tell from the cover of the book, if you haven't read it before, it's about book bans is one large part of what's going on. It's so much more than that, but that's one of the central things that's happening inside of this small district that Noor moves to from Chicago to a new district inside of suburban Illinois. Through this story, we see Noor finding ways to enact hope. She doesn't just wish that things were different in her school, she does things about it. Through this story, you also see how Noor and her friends and her peers and even adults in her life take hope, but wrestle between hope and fear. There are many things that I want to be different in the world that we live in now and that our children are inheriting. There are many things that you want to be different too, and there are times where it feels too big, where it feels like there are too many things standing in the way of the world that I wish I could live in now and the world that I want to build and where we are today. And when the problems feel larger than us, fear can stop us from feeling hope. It can feel like, how would we ever overtake this? When I think about some of the news even this week about ways that voter registrations, voter ID laws, even vote counts could get in the way of how this next election is processed, it makes me feel fearful. I start to lose hope. When I hear about the continuation of book bans happening around the country, it makes me feel fearful. It makes me lose hope. But the one thing that can chip away at that fear is finding ways to take even small actions. To find what can I do inside of my control that is one small step forward. In the book, Noor finds small ways through the support of her peers, so actually the push of her peers and some of her teachers kind of secretly on the side, helping her take small steps of action so that she can push through fear. And when she starts to take those small steps, others are able to move through that fear as well too. So today's theme, Hope is a Verb, is really to invite you to think about ways that you can turn the hope that you have, whatever those hopes are, hopes for your individual students, hopes for your school, your district, you personally, your family, and our world, and to learn from amazing educators to find ways to put that hope into action. One of the hopes that I have is that we have a better world for queer people to live in, that books that are banned, that stories that are told for trans youth and adults are different. The community's under attack, and that's a hope I have. Today I'm wearing from Glisten, the Rise Up for LGBTQ Youth shirt. A way that I try to put hope into action is that I talk about my fear and my hope. I read books and share books of LGBTQ characters and by queer authors. That's one of the ways that I try to take small steps in the way I can. Because here's the other side of it too. Action taking over fear. The people who want to ban stories and ban books are doing the same thing. They fear for unjustifiable reasons that queer people exist. And so they are trying to take actions that start small, like challenging the lives of trans people or trying to ban books. They are taking action so that they themselves can overcome a fear and put their own hopes into action. So there's no neutral. There's no standing around and waiting and hoping that, well, someone will tire out and it's our turn. We have to act. Before we introduce our keynote, one way that you can put hope into action is to check, if you're a US citizen, to check your voter registration. Even if you're sure that you are registered, we have a link on our website now to vote.gov. It is a nonpartisan tool by the US government that will link to all other states. And from there, you can check your voter registration. If you have some youth in your family that just went off to college, if you've recently moved, or even if you have always been in the same place, check. That's one way we can put hope into action. So I am absolutely delighted and grateful to introduce today's opening keynote speakers, Lorena Germán and Roberto Germán from Multicultural Classroom. Lorena has been a part of the gathering. She's spoken at many through all of her various roles. And we're so happy that she's here. And Roberto, we've wanted to join us for a long time, and we're lucky that he's here with us as well, too. You can find out so much about them at multiculturalclassroom.com. There you can connect with their books. There you can engage with their courses, invite them to speak. Lorena and Roberto are veteran educators, co-founders of Multicultural Classroom, an organization that works with students, teachers, schools, nonprofits, and other organizations and companies to help participants understand the intersection of race, bias, education, and society. Lorena is also co-founder of Disrupt Text. She's the author of, I have it over my shoulder here, the author of Anti-Racist Teacher, the Reading Instruction Workbook, and of Textured Teaching, a framework for culturally sustaining practices, which are phenomenal, and I share them everywhere. So I know you have your copies already, but if you don't, please do. Roberto is author of the poetry collection Blue Ink Tears, as well as a companion coloring book. And in general, they are co-authors of an amazing family and this incredible and much needed work. And so without further ado, welcome Lorena, welcome Roberto. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, thank you. So good to be here.
Man, shout out to the Ed Collab for holding the space, for doing this conference every year, for allowing us to connect in this way. We're going to get into it. Hope for transformation. Lorena, how you doing? You thinking about hope in education in these times?
Yes. Let's get started.
Let's
that
go.
was a really good intro, right? Like in terms of getting us to think about this already. So hope for transformation is what we want to talk about. It's the name that we thought of in terms of what it is that we really want to discuss this morning. We want to think about hope in education, specifically in these times. To Chris's point, it's really hard this moment, right? But we do want to start by saying thank you for joining us this morning. We don't take your presence for granted at all. Let us know in the chat as we continue why you are here. I'm sorry, my throat is is going through something. And so it might be a little hard to hear me at times. I'm going to keep drinking my water. So
you want to sit this one out? I got this. If you want to sit it out, I got this. I can hold it down.
Stop. Thank you. But no, thank you.
Listen, they let me in the Ed Collab. It's trouble for everybody now.
Stop. Okay. So anyway, in the chat, let us know, why are you here, right? Like, yes, you love Ed Collab. Yes, you want to, see us in the other sessions, but like, what keeps you here? Why did you come? You could have been doing so many other things. So talk to us and let us know. Okay. But a little bit about us and what it is that we're doing. Yes, we've published those books and other things that Chris has mentioned, but really we are dedicated to transformation. We want to move forward the idea that education is really critical. We believe it. We believe it with everything in our beings, that education is critical to moving our nation forward and to just even help like individuals, right? We know that educational spaces can be really harmful. And even education itself, right? Like the actual knowledge and the content, that can be harmful if you're doing something that is just wrong. It can be, but we have tools, right, to bring about change. And so we are moved and centered in a number of different things, including our faith. And one of the things that is also really important to us that our work is centered in and grounded upon is a culturally sustaining approach. And so we help schools and orgs do this. And so today we're hopeful that we can also communicate that as we go through all of this. Roberto, anything you want to add about who we are and what we do?
No, I think Chris covered it beautifully. We're here to transform. We're here to make change. We're here to impact wherever we go, in the spaces in which we dwell, the people that we encounter. We're change agents. And we want to be changed also because we're learning and growing in community. And so that's what we're here to do. We're here to be in community. And part of being in community is planting seeds, right, Lorena? So we have this theme here today in which we're planting seeds, and certainly we're planting seeds of hope. And there's intentionality in that. There's intentionality in what we do as educators, right? We go into those classrooms every day, not to collect checks. Certainly we need to get paid, and they should increase teacher pay. Can I get an amen? Yes, I can. But we are there to make change, to transform the young people that we're working with, right? To give them the skills to help them see the world, to expand their lens so that they may be the ones on the ground creating a better world, right? Beyond the world in which we dwell in, because we're here now, but they're here tomorrow. So, Lorena.
Yeah. And what I'll add is that there is this idea, right? That hope is this really passive thing, right? Like you sit in a hammock and you lay there with your book and you're in peace and you have hope, but actually that's not hope, right? Hope by definition is a feeling or desire for something to happen. It is the belief that something can happen. Hope is momentum. Hope moves you to action, right? It is actually power. Let us know in the chat how else you might define hope. But we actually want to think of hope as a verb, right? But we were I was so positively, I don't know, like it just took me by storm when Chris reached out and shared like that this was the theme, because I said exactly, right? Teaching can actually be activism because it is a politicized role. It is a politicized action.
There you go. You're going to get us in trouble again.
Right?
You're going to get us in trouble again.
I know, but I'm not saying political, right? Political is the partisan piece. I'm talking about politicized, because what we teach and what we don't teach are equally important. Those
Go ahead, break that down.
Yeah, those are all choices, right? So what we choose to teach, what we choose to bring into the room, that is a choice that we're making. And it is politicized because we are not choosing other things. The work that we bring in, the books that we choose, or the elements of the science curriculum that we bring in or that we don't bring in, that we are using to consider who's in front of us, all of that are choices, and they are politicized.
And even the questions that we ask, right? We have choices because sometimes we have curriculum that's forced upon us, but we do have a choice in terms of how we frame the questions, even when we're dealing with a curriculum that we don't necessarily embrace, because we're pushing our students to think critically.
Right. And that's what I mean by politicized, right? That we are making choices in terms of speaking to, responding to policy be it our schools policy, our district's policy. And it is also politicized in the sense that, you know, when we, in this nation, when we walk around, when we, you know, when people see us quickly, and I don't mean just like noticing a person, I mean like, okay, someone has looked at me before I say anything, right? Like they're not walking around thinking, oh, she probably has a degree, or she probably loves blah, blah, blah. No, they see my gender, right? They see whatever is part of my appearance. They see my skin color. They see elements that are easily visible. And that in and of itself is politicized, because that then determines some things, right? That's how our bias works. That determines maybe how they interact with me, if they interact with me in certain scenarios. And so that's what I mean by politicized, is that our choices are actually pretty politicized because of what it is that we're bringing in and what we're not. I want to share something with all of you really quickly. You see this QR code, you have access to it. So at Arizona State in 2021, they published this article, but it's part of a larger project of research that they're doing there. And it's really interesting because it's all about hope. And it is all about what hope can do and what it can achieve. And these are 4 really salient points from that article. First, so they say that in psychology, right, hope is a cognitive practice that involves the intentional act of setting goals and working toward them with purpose. So again, it is not this passive thing where it's just a pretty dream. It is actually something that you are chasing. And so it's important to know the difference between hope and blind optimism. I see blind optimism as, or another way to say that is toxic positivity, right? Instead of just saying it's all going to be okay, just keep your chin up. It's like, yeah, it might not be okay unless we do something, unless I hope and work toward that with purpose, right? Increased hope has been shown to be more effective than many mental health interventions for young people. That's so important, y'all, because then we can conclude as educators that in our schools and in our classrooms and in whatever learning spaces we're in, hope is actually a critical part of our conversation, or must be, right? Like, how do we teach in a way that promotes hope, that instills hope? That might be more effective in some of your students than any mental health interventions they are currently participating in. It is not to say that they don't need mental health interventions. It is to say that in addition to this can have some really important results.
Because we all need something to chase after.
That's right.
And so maintaining this sense of hope allows our students to envision something that maybe they can't touch it at the moment, right? But they can envision something they're working towards.
Yeah.
Even if we're talking about in the systemic nature, that's good. And I know you're going to get to, the data here from these first year students.
Yeah. So the data showed that those first year students at their university with high hopes in their first semester of college were more likely to enroll in a second year. And then this second piece is what I think is at the crux of this and what I wanted to bring for us today. Increased hope in these students was also associated with this. Watch this. Pro-social behavior. So they were engaging with other students more. They were making friends. They were simply positive to be around. Better civic attitudes and increased community engagement in college. Think about some of the difficult behaviors that we have in schools. Think about some of the difficult moments and interactions and even school-based violence that we have. With higher hopes, that actually can be remedied. Maybe not entirely, but we won't know until we try, right? Until we have a collective, systemic, intentional effort to promote hope and to get into hope.
Yeah, the thing is that hope has no boundaries when you're action oriented.
That's good.
That's a t-shirt.
Yes.
Hope has no boundaries when you're action oriented. So we're not just falling back.
Yeah.
To your point about the blind optimism, we're not just falling back. So yeah, be optimistic and opt to do something. And folks, I hope you're good with the style that we're approaching this with today. It's podcast style. And y'all know, those who follow know that I'm the host creator of the Art Classroom podcast. And so Those of you who've been engaging with us, thank you. I see a number of you in the chat, and I know y'all engage with us. And in fact, there's at least a couple people here in the chat that I've interviewed on the podcast, including Anna. Shout out to Anna, Small Roseboro, and also Lois Barker, my peoples, to Wanda Harris. I see y'all. And listen, our hope can be misguided. We understand that. Our hope can be misguided. And when so, then we need to redirect that. We need to redirect that, put that in its place. And the question that comes to mind is, what should educators be hoping for in these times, right? Well, we want to see all types of systemic change.
Yeah.
And so there's big picture hope, but then also, I like to think about it in terms of like, what are some things that I could hope for that I can actually reach, right? Things that I could touch, things that I could actually change. What is it that I could do now that's going to keep me grounded in this reality? And so, Lorena, what comes to mind for you?
I mean, I think I know we talked about these questions, and I know I saw them, but I did not think of my answer. And this is a tough question because so many things move us differently, right? But I think that there are enough problems in our society and world that it really is just about pick one, right? Like pick an issue, pick the thing that stirs you, pick the thing that makes you cry, pick the issue that you're like, man, if we don't solve this, right? That you can finish that sentence for. And I think that becomes what you try to work for. And so our hope then, has to be outside of ourselves. That there's obviously the statement by Mahatma Gandhi about be the change you want to see. And that's true. But like hope, like we can't hope in ourselves because we're going to fail. I am going to fail. There will be days where I'm just like, I mean, Chris said it earlier, right? Like we see some stuff and I'm just like, oh my gosh, where's I don't have any hope right now. I mean, I'm hopeless, right? And I think that there's days, maybe weeks, where we're just like, I have to tap out. I've got to tap out. And I think that that's perfectly normal and understandable because of how heavy these moments are. And so that's why hope can't be in ourselves. It has to be in something outside of us, which is why I said earlier that like our faith is big for us, right? We can hope in the understanding that collectively we're going to get to a place that there are things bigger than us that are moving things. We can hope in big concepts like love, right? Love is really important to me. And when I talk about love, just like hope, I'm not talking about the passive, just a heart feeling. I'm talking about this thing inside you that wakes you up and moves you. It stirs you into action. And so what should we be hoping for? I think for sure we have to hope for change. We have to hope for a transformation in our society. Like it is 2024 and we're still talking about so many of the same things. It just feels like we've taken some steps forward for sure, but it's like we're stuck. We can't seem to get out of this wheel. And look at how quickly we fell back into like the 50s or whatever this, I don't even know what this is, And so I think, for me, I hope in some of those things that I just said. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I hope our kids can attend safe schools.
Yeah.
And I hope we can engage in a collective conversation that includes the students, where we really value their voice in terms of what needs to be done in order for us to create safer schools. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to learn. And we're certainly not going to maximize the learning potential. So I hope for safe schools. And I hope that we could drop all the nonsense across politics and parties and lobby groups. And we could just truly think about our students and those that serve our students and what needs to be done in order to create safe spaces. And I'm not just talking about like the violence, gun violence and whatnot. I'm talking about just safe spaces for our kids to come, be present, learn, and grow deeper in community.
Yeah.
And so a question that comes to mind is, let's think about an example of education where hope led to tangible change. And when I was reflecting on this question, what came to mind for me was the civil rights movement, and started thinking about the freedom schools.
Yes.
We started thinking about SNCC, the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee, and what they did to create safe spaces for their students to maximize the learning potential of their youngsters, to push them beyond the limits, right? And so I was thinking about that. I'm like, all right, well, what can we learn from that? That we can implement now? How can that inspire us? And I think it has inspired us. It has inspired many people and many institutions, but certainly it's to be revisited, because there's still so much work to do to improve our systems and create safer schools and to bring about the change that we need to see, right? So that's one quick example that came to mind for me when I was thinking about hope that led to tangible change, that created quality education, right? That provided it for Black students that were being denied that equal access in this period of segregation. It also created a nurturing environment. It empowered students. So there were many good things. Although folks were segregated, we know that there were many good things happening in these spaces. And now I'm not advocating for us to go back to segregation. What I'm advocating for is high quality education for everybody, safer schools for everybody, empowering students, right? Tapping into student voice, student choice, and also making sure that we're giving our educators the tools and resources they need to be the best at their jobs.
Yeah. When I saw this question, I thought of a school that we work with, that we collaborate with. And it's a school here in Florida. And I think about this school's model because it really came out of hope. It is led by 2 women of color. It is a public Montessori school here in Southern Florida. And I think about how their hope for what you just articulated, right? Their hope for a school that would center them, their people, their community. And by them, I mean the students, right? It would center the students. It would center the students' cultures and communities, and even their very own community, right? Like their actual neighborhood. They said, we can do this. We have hope that this type of education can actually help and equip these young people to be the types of people we want in our society, right? To affirm who they already are, and invite them into positive, kind of self-development. And as we've been working with them now for several years, and I'm seeing that when I engage with some of their older kids who've been through their process of education, their subjects, their grades, I'm like, wow, man, this is working. This is really it. And so this, I see them as an example, and I know that there are other schools like that around the country. I see them as an example of how hope by these 2 women led to this change. First, this is an actual school now, right? That's an action. 2, it's been going for how long, Roberto? Like over 20 years?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's like over 20 years. So they've been doing this. That hope has sustained the school. That hope has led to tangible change in the community, because now you have so many kids and their parents who are coming here, who believe, who are invested in this school, And so that to me is an example of how this hope has led to change in that community.
And not only has it led to change, but it operates as a form of resistance.
Yeah.
They're empowering
Yeah.
this community,
Right.
Many of which folks who see themselves as marginalized, right?
Yeah.
They're preserving the cultural identity in that space, right?
Yeah.
And when I think about this, I think about a school that I used to serve at that when I was hired as assistant principal. Then a year later, they tried to move me and the other AP to another school, and I'm like, this is dysfunctional. There were 11 principals in the 12-year history of that school.
Yeah.
How can you preserve any sense of identity like that?
Right.
So they're preserving the identity of the school, of the, and that culture, in the community, and they're challenging the dominant narratives, right? All the things that we know that are being said about these type of spaces in schools and low-income areas and things of the sort. They're challenging the dominant narratives, man, and they're going out there and just supporting these students and families to be great, to do well, giving them the skills that they need, right? Equipping them with the skills that they need to succeed beyond that space. They're also fostering activism and civic engagement, and certainly we've been a part of that. And they're building collective resilience. And so I love what they're doing. I love that it functions as a form of resistance. Why don't you build on that? Build on this question of how can education be a form of resistance?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could think of so many examples, right? Like I think of Disrupt Text and the work that we have done and continue to do, and the ways that teachers took it and ran with it in terms of, I have to teach maybe this curriculum with these books, but I'm going to resist by how I teach them, the questions that I ask, the tasks that I assign, right? And so that's why I said earlier that what we teach and what we don't teach, because like I could teach this classic quote unquote text the way that everybody expects I'm going to teach it, right? Or I can resist that and choose to teach it in this other way, in this way that interrogates some of these characters, in this way that questions what the values are of this novel, in ways that maybe challenge the values that these characters have that may have forever been perceived as like great and normal and standard, right? And so what I don't teach in that case is an important choice. And that is a form of resistance, right? Like we might not be able to, we might lack agency, right? In a number of ways in terms of curriculum or even choices that we have, but we can resist in subtle ways that actually have really positive results with our students. And someone asked in the comments earlier, like, can you explicitly teach hope? And I think so. I think that's resistance, right? Like we can actually, the same ways that we say kindness and we teach and talk about kindness at the preschool level or even at the high school level, right? We can say hope. We can literally talk about hope. I mean, that's what we're doing right now, right? We started with a definition. I offered us some research. Now we're engaging in this conversation, trying to figure out like what hope and just teasing it out, because even though the word hope isn't in here, I've got to have hope to resist. Right? Like what is motivating me to take this action of resistance? So education and what we're doing in our schools and in our classrooms and in other non-traditional learning spaces, right? Because I'm thinking about also after school spaces, right? Like I'm thinking about, for example, adult education rooms. I'm thinking about folks that go into jails and prisons to do education in there. That's
right.
resistance.
Because education is not contained to the four walls of the schoolhouse.
That's right. That's right. And that's how we can resist, is by saying that this place matters and we're going to have hope in here. And what I am choosing to do with you in here and what I am not choosing to do with you in here is all part of this big project of making our society, making our nation, and making your life better,
Absolutely. And when we think about this resistance, it also begs the question, is education action-driven hope? Right? And definitely is. I mean, I think you summarized that well.
Right.
And part of what comes to mind for me is we're modeling hope.
That's right.
We're modeling that hope.
That's right.
I think about things that we say to our students.
Yeah.
I hope to see you at the basketball game. I hope that you try out for the basketball team. I hope that you join the chess club.
Yeah.
Just that little.
I hope to see you tomorrow.
I hope to see them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just that nudge. Mm-hmm. That nudge is action driven.
Yeah.
Right? Because not only are we expressing our hope, but we're also, whether consciously or unconsciously, strategically steering them, right? Guiding them towards a particular direction. Because we want to see you over here because we see your potential. Right? And then our students have to feel that. They have to hear that. They have to believe that. We could get them to believe that, and then we could see their hope materialize. Right? We see that hope moves to change, and we see that change is action oriented, and then they feel empowered, and then we see the long-term impact.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want to see the long-term impact.
Yeah.
So that the lives of our young people are radically transformed. The communities are transformed. The schools are transformed. Our society is transformed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, yes, to everything that you said, right? And I'm also thinking that education, and I said this earlier, I think, but I feel like the way that this question is written, maybe can help us see this. Like, education is an act of hope. It is an actual act of to teach is an act of hope. When I am teaching a human being a concept, I am doing my best to explain this concept to you in hopes that you will understand it and use it and learn it and know it. So the mere act of teaching is hope, right? It is driven by hope. And I hope that, pun intended, that we can walk away with that, right? That like, that's why I get so frustrated when folks diminish what we do in classrooms, as if we really are just standing in there and passing out pieces of paper for people to fill out, like this transactional babysitting kind of situation. We're doing some legitimate human work. That's actually what we're doing in that space with those little people, right? Or big people. We are actually engaging in human interactions and human development. Like, this is way more than these interactions and how society perceives what we do. And I think that good teachers convey that, effective teachers convey that. And I think that, because education has been harmful for a lot of people, we didn't all experience this. And so I can see where that conflict, right, exists, the duality of that, the complexity of what it is to talk about education and teaching in schools. But I think that in its very basic sense, like, teaching really is an action that is driven by hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let's talk about what it looks like to create hope. And I think we've been doing that to an extent, but let's elaborate then. Let's elaborate.
Yeah.
When I took a role as principal in a small private school in Texas, part of what I was called to do is to bring a sense of order and move the community to more connectedness, because there were some issues with bullying and things of the sort, disrespect and whatnot. So I had to go in there and set a clear vision. I had to understand, like, all right, who are we as a community, and what happened along the way that there's a disconnect? What's leading to the children behaving this way? Because I don't think at their core that's who they are and that's how they really want to behave. So what's happened in the environment, and then what needs to change? Now, I wasn't trying to hit a home run. Like, yo, well, I'm new. I got to come in and learn the community. I got to understand who all the players are. I got to get a feel for them. They got to get a feel for me. And as I do that, then I'm taking these small actionable steps.
Right.
Again, I don't have to knock it out the park in day one. I don't even have to knock it out the park in year one. We got to knock it out the park over time.
Yeah.
But in order to get there, I need to be able to take these incremental steps. And in taking the incremental steps, I need to ensure that others are in the fold, because we can't be operating in silos. I'm not getting this done on my own. So I have to empower others. I have to empower my colleagues. I have to empower the students. I have to empower the parents. I'm like, yo, let's work collectively. How can I support you? And now I'm going to articulate how you can support me, no doubt about it. And then let's hold each other accountable to that. And in the process, as we're growing together, working together, supporting each other, then we're cultivating some resilience. But we're not doing that in isolation. We need each other. So we got to foster that collaboration. It's one of the reasons that I appreciate being able to do the podcast with our classroom, because it gives me the opportunity to collaborate with all these amazing people, educators and authors, with Tawanda Harris, with Lois Barker, with Anna Small Roseborough, with all these, with Tiffany Jewell, who's a wonderful collaborator, and she has that spirit too, and she's brought us into the fold of what she's doing. We've been contributing writers to her most recent book. I love that. That inspires me.
Right.
Because I want people to have that type of energy. If I have the energy to collaborate with you, then I need you to extend that to me also. And if you're extending that, if you're reaching out and saying like, yo, let's work together, let's make it happen, let's bring about change together. Well, now I'm a bit more fired up as opposed to doing it on my own. Right. It's also why I appreciate working with you. So let me take a moment to give you your flowers too.
Oh.
Yeah, you're pretty good to work with. You know, good to work with. We collaborate well together. And I think that what we do also offers a model. Yeah. And I do believe it offers hope to others.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're gonna get a kiss for that.
I knew this was gonna happen.
You started it. But anyway.
All I said was that I like working with you.
That's enough.
Oh my goodness.
But let me just say, I want to add something really practical for us too, because I want to go back to that question that was posed around like, how do we do this explicitly? Because you know me, I'm always going to think about what does this look like tomorrow morning at 8:30, right? And I think about projects that we can do. And I think about out of the box thinking that we do with our kids and our work with all the people that we work with in our spaces. And it's like, what matters to you? Well, then let's go chase it. Right? Like, let's go chase it. Let's turn our education. Let's turn these topics that we have to study. Let's turn these books that we have to read and frame it in the way that speaks to the issues that matter to you so that this feels useful to you. And yes, let's talk about hope. Let's, like this is the propaganda. The propaganda is, what's your hope? Ooh, let's hope for it. Let's literally use that word over and over and over in the room with the people we work with. Let's explicitly name that word, put it up, pretty sign, hope, right? Like, I have hope. What do you have hope in? I know that we can do that. And I see us doing that with other things, right? Things that matter to us as teachers, but in a student-driven room, in a student-driven learning space, our stuff kind of has to fall to the side. It has to be pushed over because the people that matter in there in terms of who is learning is the learners, right? And so when I think about how we can create hope, well, it looks like saying, what do you believe in? What do you want to see change? What do you think matters that we need to address? Well, I care about climate change. Well, okay, then let's look at this book that we're reading. And what about it speaks to climate change? Nothing. Well, isn't that a problem? The absence of the conversation is a problem. Let's study that. Let's actually have a conversation around that, right? And then through a real critical lens, to use Trisha Ibarvia's word and her work too, her book, what are the ways that we can unpack what's going on in this book and to look at it through this lens of climate change. But anyway, all of that is to say that I think that we have ways to really be thoughtful and critical and tangible in how we think about making and creating hope in education.
Yes. So as we prepare to wrap up, we want to invite you to consider and to synthesize your thinking. Mm-hmm. Notice what you're feeling, what's coming up for you, assess it. Right. And what are the loudest questions you have in your mind? Go ahead. You could take a moment, and certainly if you want to respond in the chat, share that in the chat. But hopefully we've given you some stuff to wrestle with here.
Yeah.
And more importantly, we hope that we've given you some hope, and that hope will move you to action.
Yeah. Yeah. And as y'all are doing that, I'm going to go back. We won't have time to actually go through a lot of these questions, but I want to pose them. If you want to write them down, go ahead. These are questions that we thought too would be salient and we wanted to get in conversation about, but time is escaping us, but we still want to make sure you have them. So how do you balance the need for patience that is so hard in long-term change with the urgency of this hope, right? This immediate action that we want. So important to think about that. What does hope need to turn into action? What does that mean in education? And that first question is like an excellent, essential question, right? To even have that as part of your book study, again, because I'm thinking in an ELA world, right? But as part of a book study, or even like your science unit, again, I'm stuck on climate change. I keep seeing all these plants. But what does hope need to turn into action? What books, ideas, or teachings inspire you to act on hopes for a better future? If you have any of those, you can drop some in the chat too as we're wrapping up. And then, you know, again, we want you to synthesize. I feel like sometimes when we're in a keynote or we're listening to a workshop, we don't always have time to pause and be like, okay, wait, what am I going to take away? What is a thought that's sticking with me? Let me flesh that out for a second. And so we want to invite you to do that, okay, as well. It's a lot that you got to do now.
So make sure you follow us. If you're not following us, please, across all platforms, Multicultural Classroom. Would love to connect with you, support you, and hear about all the great work you're doing in your space.
Yes.
We appreciate the opportunity to be here with y'all, and thank you to Chris and the team at the Ed Collab. What a blessing to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you both very much. I'll leave this up on the screen for just a moment so you can scan the QR code when it's there. Thank you, Lorena. Thank you, Roberto. We knew having you along would be a powerful way to start this morning. And there's just so much. First, we're just grateful for the work that you do in the world and how much you impact education for all of our kids. Both through your writing, your activism, everything that you touch is just incredibly inspiring. I'm very moved by one of the points you made earlier of it can feel overwhelming, but find the thing that makes you cry or find the thing that just like stops your heart and just pick that thing. Pick a thing and start. So thank you both so much for starting us in such a powerful way today. And so for all of you who have been joining us, if you were inspired, why am I saying if? You were inspired. So a few things that you should do. One is you should make sure you're following Roberto, Lorena, and Multicultural Classroom. You can find all of their details at multiculturalclassroom.com. There you can find their books. These are just a few. There's many more books and courses that you can connect with. And most importantly of all, if you were, I'm cutting out if, because you were inspired this morning, please head over to our charity page, gathering.theedcollab.com/charity, or just click on the charity link on the top of the Gathering website. And there you can learn more about Top Notch Scholars and Latinx Kidlit Book Festival, our two charities for today. I especially want to highlight Top Notch Scholars was chosen by Lorena and Roberto today as their adopted charity for us. So please do click over, learn more about them, and consider no amount is too small. Nonprofits need support to do the good work that they're doing. So even if it's what you would pay for a cup of coffee, please do head over to that page, click charity, learn about those organizations, and please pay the joy forward. Your donation would be great. If you're unable to donate, there are lots of ways that you can support both these organizations through awareness, or find other ways that you can pay the joy forward from today as well too. So before we leave, just to note, coming up next in our very next session, we have a session by Andrea and Georgina on empowering multilingual students. Hope is choosing equity and access in education. And a session by Tuanda Anita, The Data Speaks for Itself, Connections and Tools that Ignite Hope, for all students. So please head over to those. You can find them on our website. And thank you all for joining us this morning. We hope you have a terrific day, and I'll see you again at the closing this afternoon. Take care, everyone.